Hey guys, this is Alex, and welcome to the Two Dudes, Brews, and Reviews podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about 2011's sports action drama, Warrior, which stars Joel Edgerton, Tom Hardy, and Nick Nolte. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing to the podcast, leave us a rating or a review, and maybe even tell your friends about us. With that being said, we hope you enjoy the show.
I've been really busy the last couple weeks, but it's been some fun experiences, to say the least.
We're finally putting the hiatus on hold. That was the longest period that we've gone without recording a podcast, like since we started this thing.
I know, it's weird to even like think about it that way.
What was it, like 4 weeks?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Even 3 weeks, it's like, oh my God, dude. Which, like, hey, man, it's a testament, though. Like, it's just, like, really busy right now for me with, like, Blake's wedding and stuff. Because, like, there's a lot of, and, like, we're trying to buy houses and, you know, we're just busy. But, you know, yeah, man, I'm hyped too. We're talking about one of my, like, kind of B-list favorites, I guess you would say. It's not, like, in my top 10, but, you know, it's, like, kind of a movie that I hold in a place. Like, it's beloved by me and similar to the last couple of things I've recommended with, like, Tron Legacy and Last Samurai. Warrior in 2011. It's something that, like, I never forget about for some reason. I don't know why, but
This is one that has, like, good word of mouth, but, like, wasn't a big success right off the bat, from what I know.
Yeah, it which is, like, kind of unfortunate because I think as time has gone on, I think that this movie kind of holds up, to be honest with you. You know, boxer and, like, MMA movies, I guess. I mean, there really isn't many MMA movies. I mean, if you think about boxing movies, immediately everybody thinks Rocky, and now, like, for some reason, like, Creed is kind of, like, popping off in, like, the mainstream. Mm-hmm. But, like, this movie is, like, gritty and indie and unique in a way that, like, these other commercialized films are not. So
it's like the cult classic of the bunch.
Yeah, and, you know, I thought a lot about, like, The Wrestler when I watched this film.
I did too.
And, like, we'll draw comparisons there, but I don't want to get too far ahead of us. We're also drinking Urban Artifact Pinwheel tonight, which is a orange fruit tart. This is, like, the first beer that I had by this company, and I think I got you to drink it, and I think we hopped into, like, the Gadget and stuff right after that, which is, like, one of my all-time favorites.
I'm fully on the Urban Artifact train.
Yeah,
it is.
It's one of my favorite local beer companies. It's and it's kind of nice because Isaiah and his friends really like it too, so we always can bust one open and everybody always appreciates it. Even the guy at the liquor store was telling us, you should get the Gadget if you've never had that. I'm like, buddy, I've been on the Gadget for a long time. Don't fucking get me started. But
this is good shit.
Yeah, it's only 4.5%. It's a 6-pack. Instead of, like, drinking a 9% Gadget, we'll be fine. We'll pace ourselves with these. So
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, man, I literally just rambled for 12 minutes, so cut me off, goddammit.
That's not my specialty.
Hey, come on, gotta shoot the shit. You know, I feel like this movie kind of lies in a special place where, again, it definitely has, like, some cliches and some tropes, but there's something with our story here that's like, oh God, how'd I put this? Really, it's a story about family. This is the Fast and the Furious. It's about family.
It's about family.
But it's a story about family through MMA, and we got like alcoholism, a family on the brink of foreclosure, a war hero that's been scarred, that's trying to, like, make money to save his fallen comrade's family. So, I mean, there's, like, just a lot of, like, really interesting, unique moving parts through ultimately what is a MMA tournament.
I think when it comes to, like, MMA and fighting movies, they get kind of a bad rep because I'd say a majority of them are kind of slightly generic, or like this testosterone filled, like sponsored by Monster Energy, like type thing. That's not what this one is at all.
I mean, there's, like, litterings of it in there slightly because the story lends itself. You kind of have to set up, like, okay, we're actually doing a tournament here, and, like, you know, they litter in promotional material and, like, obviously, like, training montages and, you know, gym stuff. When you're outside of that, like, it's a really, like, intensely dark, thematic family drama.
This is a mature, slow-paced film. Mm-hmm. Usually you would expect needle drops from bands like Saliva or Trapped or something in a movie like this.
Yeah. Face the bite.
This movie begins and ends with The National.
Yeah.
One of my favorite all-time bands.
Yeah, I would. That's something that I wanted to talk about because this was like one of my first introductions to this band when I watched this film.
So that's why you love the song about today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. You know, me and my brother and my dad watched this film together when I first watched it, and we like really loved it. And like it was like, I think it was a little too mature for me at the time because I couldn't really fully comprehend the weight of the situations involved. But I knew there was something there. I was like, God, that was really powerful. I could tell like there was something really powerful about it. I mean, at least from beginning to end, I felt like there was a really nice completion that I could like understand as a child. I mean, I was like not like so young. I mean, it came out in 2011, so I would have probably been like 12 or 13 when we first watched it.
I couldn't see the pace of this entertaining a 12 or 13-year-old for some reason.
We were really into like movies as a kid.
You guys liked good shit.
We like, well, my dad had really good taste, I always felt, you know, at least for the time. I really felt like, said it many times, but he was the DVD Netflix guy. Like he got them mailed in. And so we would like get advertisements for other films. Like I've seen Cyrus with like John C. Reilly from the Netflix on, you know what I mean? Like just really random shit like Cyrus with Jonah Hill and John C. Reilly.
I've seen it.
You know, stuff like that, like where it's like some really absurd stuff that like you would never expect like a 15-year-old to watch.
Especially not back then.
Yeah. And so we just got like exposed to a lot of interesting stuff, and you know we'd watch a movie and then be like, oh, we really like the advertisement for that. Like, can you put that in your queue? And back then the queue was like you would get mailed the DVD once it like raised up to your the availability on your queue. It was really interesting, and so there was something that I latched onto, and I will say this movie did a lot for me now than it ever has because I haven't seen it in a couple years. And as I'm like transitioning into like full adulthood with, you know, a career and like finances and deep, meaningful relationships with people, like you really it had a lot more gravity to the situation, and I really empathized with all parties involved, and so it was really unique.
You know, I had never heard of this movie until you brought it up to me, I think. Even back in 2011, I don't remember seeing ads for this. I didn't know anybody like else that saw it. Did you just see an ad for it somehow, and that's why you put it on the queue?
I think so. It was either that, or I think it was like when Netflix had just transitioned into streaming, and they did streaming and the DVD. I think it was when that, and I think it was a film that was on the streaming service. I could be wrong, but I think that's how I remember it. I don't know why. I don't know why we liked it, but I mean, we grew up on UFC as well. So like, I think that was probably an angle that we took from it. You know, probably got into it that way. I mean, that was like the same with like Moneyball. I was like, oh, it's a baseball movie. But like, as a kid, I'm like, I didn't really fully comprehend the weight of like, it's literally just a dialogue film.
Yeah.
You know?
My blind spot actually is MMA. I don't know like shit about combat sports, like real combat sports.
Yeah, I've watched MMA for a very, very long time, like ever since I was a kid. So I got a lot out of it from that, and I actually like have some like critiques from it because it is like choreographed fighting. It's so unrealistic.
Even I could tell at times that
it's frustrating.
It seemed like it took more inspiration from like pro wrestling at times, like in the choreography than MMA.
Yeah, there was like very little like, and like granted, you cannot for a film pace your fights like a real fight. You have to like, there's not enough time for it with the amount of fights that we would have to watch. But some of the things that were frustrating for me is that the choreography was so unrealistic in ways where if you're somebody that like enjoys fighting and understands even the smallest amount of like, you have to like set up jabs and you pick your opponents apart. Like very rarely is it like you're throwing haymakers in round one, you know? So
these guys slugged the fuck out of each other in every fight.
Exactly. So like that was like kind of frustrating for me as a fan of like UFC and MMA and like kickboxing and all that, and even like grappling. But you know, that's like it's not even like what it's about. At the end of the day, it's really not what it's about at all. And I can like kind of push past that. Like, cause honestly, the fighting is my least favorite part.
It is the weakest aspect in this fighting film.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, how do you push past the cliches though? I mean, that's something that I think is the biggest strength, because when I like think about, I've seen like Creed, and like, I think the first Rocky is great. And like, I think Rocky 4 is, I think it's like Rocky 1 and then Rocky 4 and then, you know, Rocky 2 and Rocky 3 and then the other shitty ones. But it's all just like, yeah, testosterone, fucking, we gotta get the guy, we gotta beat him, you gotta win, you gotta want it, you know. you got to go to the depths of hell and come back. It's not that.
You're gonna gasp, but I've never seen Rocky or Creed.
You should watch the first Rocky. I think it's much more like this film than what you think.
I'm sure it's great.
The first one is very gritty. It's smart for the time. I think it really was. But yeah, the whole like, let's have somebody hit a sandbag with like a baseball bat for our sound effects. The cracking of a fucking whip, is our punch sound effect for some reason. Like,
Yeah.
Cliches, they happen. But there's more here. We have Joel Edgerton, Tom Hardy, and Nick Nolte as our like kind of our holy trinity here.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I think Joel Edgerton and Nick Nolte are the strongest performances. I think personally, Tom Hardy for me, this is actually one of his weakest roles.
Okay, that's interesting.
What's really interesting is like this is when Tom Hardy took steroids for the first time, and he did Bane a couple years later. So
he probably filmed Dark Knight Rises this same year.
He did,
because
he did.
That came out the year after this, right?
I think he was juiced up for this film and then Bane.
He's fucking jacked.
Yeah, it's because his androgen receptors in his traps are huge. His traps blow the fuck up. He looks like a cow.
I do agree with the sentiment that Nick Nolte and
Joel Edgerton.
I always want to say Taron Egerton,
Really?
the guy that played Elton John.
Oh,
I don't know why. I do agree with that though. The thing with Tom Hardy and me, he's never done much for me as an actor, honestly.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is I think Inception came out shortly before this.
2010,
Yeah.
right?
I think Tom Hardy was kind of having his moment where he was playing really good side characters, and then like this was his transition into a lead role or a supporting actor. I mean, I think he's okay in The Dark Knight Rises. He's wearing a mask all day, but
is it even his voice in that movie?
Yeah, it is.
It is? Mm-hmm. Okay.
But Tom Hardy, there were a couple times where I was trying to get inside of his character's head and like his mannerisms, because his character is so emotionally immature compared to Nick Nolte and Joel Edgerton's character. So I think part of the reason why he can come across a little lackluster in performance is because I think his character kind of like demands a little bit of, that insecure, boastful physicality to show dominance, rather than like he's a very physical problem solver.
He barely speaks in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And so I think it can kind of, because his character kind of lends being stupid, and brooding, So there's kind of that.
He's naturally the least interesting one out of the three, for sure. And there's like not much that you can interpret or get from the like performance he's giving and like the character, like the way it's written.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like if you look at Nick Nolte's character, it feels like there's a history there.
Yeah.
You can't really look deeper into Tommy in this movie.
Yeah, I think part of that is because we have Joel Edgerton and Nick Nolte. There are characters that have like moved on from their past, whether it's good or bad for them. Like I think specifically Joel Edgerton, he is our bridge between the two characters. Like Nick Nolte, kind of interesting, recovering alcoholic 1,000 days, very reserved. Oh my God, it's an amazing performance. But
he's excellent in this.
Yeah. And then nominated for an Oscar, by the way. Didn't get it. But the character of, was it Brendan? Yeah, Brendan, played by Joel Edgerton. He has the ability to open up doors for history, and there's like more to read into. And then ultimately, I think by the time we get to the end, where you can kind of see why there is no room to interpret the character farther than what he is because this is his come to Jesus moment, his him being raised up from his trauma, so where I think the other characters have like at least developed a little bit more of a healthy way to deal with their trauma, and he's the one that's been left in the dirt, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And so his character just kind of like emanates that all around, and so it kind of comes off weird, I think.
I find it interesting that you think this is Hardy's weakest role, though. I think even with him not being my favorite, I think this is the best that I've seen him.
You might be right.
What's like his like great role?
He's really good in that. He's good in like Peaky Blinders, I believe.
Oh, is he in that show?
Mm-hmm. And he is in. God, he plays a set of twins in a film that he's really good in. I can't remember what it's called though. Lordy, I've seen it, but I can't remember what it's called.
I know what it is.
He's pretty good in that movie.
I can't think of the title either.
But I think obviously that film, I don't even think it's popular or even was when it came out, but I think it lended itself for him to be really interesting in two different ways.
Maybe my opinion towards him is just because I've only seen him in the Nolan stuff, Mad Max, and like Venom, and I hate Venom.
Yeah. He's good in Mad Max, but he's a blank slate.
Yeah. I don't remember him even speaking in that movie.
I mean, he barely does. I saw that in theaters. It was awesome.
I bet.
I don't know. He kind of is in the same lane as like the Hemsworth brothers, you know? Mm-hmm. He's kind of just like handsome, hunkish dude with like not a lot of depth to him in many ways, where you can like stack up a character that like, or you can stack up an actor like even like Bale, for example. You know, he's had a really unique repertoire of roles. Like he can play all around the board. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like Tom Hardy's never really had something that, at least not mainstream enough, popular wise, like to be like, oh, this is a beautifully dramatic role for him, and it gets like mainstream praise. Like I think there's a film that where he's in a car the whole time that I've been meaning to see, and I can't remember what it is, but there's supposed to be some really powerful performances, a powerful performance by him in that. I don't know. I would like to see him do more.
I never know what the fuck this dude's saying.
Yeah. You, Nicole?
Dude, he's so hard to understand. Mm-hmm. I think I saw something.
Thick Brooklyn accent.
They did a study to determine the hardest to understand actor, and he was like the number one spot.
Really?
Yeah. Subtitles were required for me on this one. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, he like really leans heavy into like the thick Brooklyn accent, and it kind of like, also he's like, yeah, he's thuggish, you know? So you kind of get that. It's like very kind of similar to like Good Time, if you ask me, where you can like, it's unaudible, like just like fucking dirty, thuggish, dialogue.
I can see that.
I have a really hard time understanding Patterson in that film, and he speaks like a perfect American accent.
I hate to keep trash talking the guy. Good performance in this movie. I think I'm just saying that he's not my favorite overall.
No, and it's like I said, I think it just kind of ties back into the fact that the role kind of really demands him to be like really shut off from all of our characters. You know, and I do think like him in the casino with Nolte was really, really good. And you know, the scene after that where they're in the hotel room, like that's, I don't want to bust that open too quickly, but
we'll get to it.
You know, there's something there. It's just like 90% of the time it's tough. I mean, how did you feel about, I mean, we talked about like feeling a history with a character like Nolte, his character. Like I feel like from as soon as you open in, you get to listen to Little National and get to see him driving home from church. Like the film takes no time to get started, but I feel like you get a real level of depth with his character right out of the gates.
The implied history is definitely there. He just plays this like forlorn, like sadness. I find it interesting that like it's implying that he was a horrible, abusive drunk as a kid, or
to his children
when his sons were kids. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that it didn't lean into like the history,
like get any flashbacks or anything.
I was expecting a flashback for sure.
It's all implied. I think that's really, you know, if I think they did that, I think that might ruin the film for me a little bit.
Would it be a little too like emotionally manipulative?
Yeah, because I think by the end of the film, where it kind of feels victorious in some way, there is like a sense of peace and closure involved. I think that's like really, honestly, I think that's like one of the more powerful thematic elements of the film, where it's like, it's not perfect and it's like really ugly, but they're doing it, you know? And I just think like if you would have put the, I don't know, just the ugliness of that inside like what ultimately is like a heartfelt film, it would like really, it would like, I think it would like make the film a little too dark, and I think it would kind of be like misery porn at that point.
I think you're right. Yeah, it would have clashed with the tone too much. But maybe even if it was just like given a bit more dialogue, like between the characters, like I don't know, the details are very vague, and it's like that with all of the grudges between the three characters. And I like it, but at the same time, like I kind of want a tiny bit more.
Yeah, and I think part of that is that you really have to like, the film is like, yeah, but don't forget we got to fight, you know?
Yeah.
So there you have to, there's like a really small subtle balance that they're doing, which I think like overall it's really well done. But yeah, I mean, like if I get like 15 more minutes of like just like somber dialogue, I'd be like perfectly okay with that.
I'd be down for it. I really like this movie, and I can look past a lot of the things wrong with it because the emotional core that's built is so strong. But I think the screenplay is kind of wonky in this one a bit.
Yeah, the pacing in the first half is excellent. It's so tight.
I felt like I was watching one of like my new favorite dramas.
Yeah, I know.
And in a way I was.
Yeah. I completely agree with that sentiment. Don't you feel like when the tournament is like actually getting ready to start, the film kind of feels like it's stepping back? Like,
yeah,
it's not even like a what do you call it? Like the third act slump. What is that?
It's usually in the second act.
Second act slump.
Yeah.
It doesn't even feel like that. It kind of feels like, I think where the film really falls apart for me personally is when you have like a really cheesy cliche training montage.
I think that's the dividing line.
That is
for me
right
too.
where it like kind of feels, okay, let's cut this in half. Let's put the fucking dull cliche action boxing film bullshit right in here.
We're getting the picture-in-picture, literally, like
it's bad.
5 different boxes.
It's not good. This is something that I wanted to bring up. I love a lot of things in this film, but I think one of the biggest things for me is the screenplay kind of like takes a toll at a certain spot, and you kind of have to like really build back momentum with fighting, like kind of like have to build up tension again. And B, I think the editing at points is fucking god awful.
Like during the fighting scenes specifically?
Sometimes during the fighting scenes, sometimes I feel like you can have like some really great dialogue, and then the way we transition to other films, the way we transition to other scenes feels like kind of forced, and you kind of like have to catch your footing really quickly. Like, I'm going to give you a very specific example, and I think it'll open another door. The editing with like the principal and the kids that want to support. Oh, like, we're thinking that, we could, watch whatever the fuck his name.
Brendan,
whatever Mr. whatever his last name is. Mr. Connell, right?
I think so.
Yeah, we were thinking we could watch Mr. C's fight in the auditorium, and he was like, no. And then they have to like walk out of the principal's office, and then it's like just this really, really strange choice to be like, let's watch these 4 kids that are playing high schoolers that are like very clearly like 25, 26, 27, like walk down the hallway and like it's fucking out of Breakfast Club. It was like really fucking strange, and then like let's fade to black, and then
that
like
was weird,
yeah,
wasn't it?
Isn't that the fucking strangest choice of editing right there?
I totally forgot about
exactly
that.
And like little things like that where I cannot look past that. I'm like, why?
It was almost like an art house shot, like in the middle of this gritty drama.
Yeah, it felt really bizarre and forced, and like it was so tonally off from like the rest of the film. Where like in the editing room, fucking cut that shit out, man. You don't need it. It could clearly move into another scene if you like quick edit that out. And like, I don't know, it just really bothers me because I know there's ways to like tighten the screenplay up. And then like, again, editing with like, let's do a training montage. We could do that, but like it felt like let's cut the drama right here, and then like boom, let's do the editing where let's do the training montage, let's do the fucking Rocky 4 like he's in, like it just felt weird.
It was a strangely dramatic shot considering like which characters were in the scene. Like if you wanted to do that, then do it after a super heartfelt scene between the dad and Brendan or something.
Yeah, and like specifically, Brendan, he gets put in the tournament because Frank is training like a top contender for the tournament. And then it's like, oh, in the training montage, we're going to imply that he gets hurt. It's like, why not like show them doing the run? It would have felt so much cleaner and smoother. It
undercuts the drama of that situation because we as audience members want Brendan to be in the tournament.
Yeah.
And like that's a roadblock that like I want to see that scene.
Exactly.
Where like you get this like the hope scene. Like, oh, like now he's got it. They didn't really play up the fact that he like
had been training probably for a month or two. Yeah, just like they had to move the story along quick, and like that bothers me because if you have the drama and it's very clearly working, and you've had like the training with like you get to see like Tommy's character beat up Mad Dog Grimes in the gym, and it works really well. And it's like, I mean, again, granted, choreography and like you kind of have to like Hollywood up a fight, but tonally it's really strong for the film. You could do that with Brendan's character to show him, you know, having success in that hope that you're talking about, because that's for his character. That's kind of like what his theme is like, it's a hopeful, I'm doing this for my family. We're going to lose the house. And like, he's a man really struggling, and like, he's taken this very positive masculine path that like this film has set up. And then like, you kind of like snub it with really cheesy drama like that. Really cheesy editing like that, where let's have him run past the other guy and the other guy blow out his ACL. Like, let's have a whole scene of that. It would have worked just as fine.
Yeah. Anytime the movie like takes time and sits in on a scene, it's beautiful. The first 2 acts, I think, are like borderline perfect.
Yeah.
It's not that the third act takes like a total nosedive or anything. Like, I think there's like really great moments sprinkled here, like the casino scene and like the relapse by the father, the exit of the 2 brothers at the end, and we'll expand on all that later. I think it comes down to the fact that the script has like way too many ideas to like really deliver on all of them.
I figured we'd have this conversation because I think we would draw comparisons to The Wrestler. But in my opinion, I think the film does a lot better of a job juggling all the different. I mean, like, we have, again, I laid it out earlier, but we have one of our brothers that his house is going to be foreclosed on, which I think all like the foreclosure stuff, like the meeting with the bank,
or post 2008.
Yeah. Which of course like probably hit home for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
His dialogue with his wife, and then you have, you know, Nolte talking about like he doesn't drink anymore with like Tommy, and like they're like literally like Tommy rips on him all the time, which is like obviously like you can understand where he's coming from as well. And then on top of that, you've just got like some really intense stakes, like for like, we gotta like get in this tournament, which I think it's like handled pretty well for the fact that like it's kind of like setting up a huge idea of like, let's get in a tournament. And I think like for the most part they do a pretty good job of like seamlessly getting us there as far as like setting the story in motion to arrive there. I think you kind of have to suspend your disbelief in a certain aspect, because Brendan in real life would never get the opportunity to do this if this was a real thing. It would never happen. And the same with Tom Hardy's character. I don't think that would happen either. It may happen now because of like the way I think about it. In today's climate, it would be a little bit more believable because MMA is like a little bit more blockbustery now. There's a little bit more like personality involved. And like when you have somebody that is really like gets internet famous, like Kimbo Slice, for example, was that guy at one point. So it's not too far-fetched, but I think the stakes are a little too high for like these 2 characters to like make their way in. But I think they do a really good job of like getting us there without it being like, oh, fuck you, man. Like, you couldn't do that.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime story happening twice at the same time.
Exactly.
And then these 2...
That's a great way to put it, by the way.
These 2 flukes are meeting at the end, and then the underdog of the 2 flukes is still winning. So it's like times 3 even.
Yep.
And I say all this with like, I really, really like this movie.
Exactly.
Like I'm still...
You're still on board.
You said you think this balances it better than The Wrestler.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I think this movie is still stronger despite that.
Well, I think The Wrestler is if Tom Hardy's character is the main character and the only main character. You have like, it's like a very dull, like emotionally unintelligent character would be their main character. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like that movie's a lot more gritty than this film. Like that movie's a lot more cold-hearted than this one. So,
and that one like hits its cliches in a more boring way than this one does.
I think the performances in this are much stronger as well.
I agree.
So there's that. I mean, you're totally right. I mean, it's a lot to like try to digest in a small amount of time. Again, that's the perfect way to put it. It's 2 once-in-a-lifetime stories happening at the same time. But yeah, it still works for some reason. I don't know why.
It's unexplainable to me.
And hey, you know what's funny? This film has a very, very similar score to Inception.
Really?
Yeah. So this film has a 84% Rotten Tomatoes critic score and a 92% audience score. Inception has an 87% critic score and a 91 audience score, which I find to be very odd. Because because I think Inception is much better than this film. At least
I love Inception.
You know, I think that I've like forgotten about it, and I want to talk about it soon, by the way. But Nolan's coming up soon. We're gonna go see it opening weekend IMAX.
I'm psyched.
I'm fucking ready. You know, so for some reason it works despite its cliches, and like that's kind of my biggest thing of like doing these movies back to back to back. We have Legacy, Tron Legacy, The Last Samurai, and Warrior. They're like the films that for some reason I still love despite their flaws. I don't know how or why, but they just appeal to my emotions so well.
And even me, the cynic of us two, like kind of sees it with all three of these movies as well.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre.
I know.
Never in a million lifetimes did I think I would give a fuck about Tron Legacy. But here we are.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of liked it. When this movie is on, it's really on. It's resting on the strength of like a perfect hour and 25 minutes. And then there's like good stuff after that too, more or less like sprinkled in. But yeah, dude, a lot of ideas going on here.
You know, this is a film that has made me actively weep for the first time in a very long time. Now, granted, I did watch this film with many a drink.
Was this the night that you drank a bottle of wine to yourself?
Bottle of wine by myself. It was Thursday, and I had a meeting. Thursday was the day that I announced the meeting with my team that I'm going to be in charge. And, you know, I've been really stressed out, and, you know, I have to do a lot of work, like, outside of work for, like, this role now. And, you know, like, making processes and, like, typing up, you know, expectations and, like, all of these things where it's just been really stressful, you know, and I just came back from Knoxville last weekend, and I've just been, like, really stressed out. A lot of, like, unknown factors are, like, really, like, stepping into my life. And I needed to watch the film. I had, like, planned to watch it on Thursday night. And Elizabeth was like, I told her, I'm like, yeah, I was like, you know, I might, like, have a drink. You know, I haven't had, like, a drink at home in a long time. And I'm like, I've been meaning to crack open this bottle of wine. I had it since Christmas. It was like just a Sauvignon Blanc, like it was actually like one of the Bengals wines that had come out, you know, that they release or whatever. And it was just like a Sauvignon Blanc. It was really, really good. And then all of a sudden I just found myself like, I had a glass, and I'm like, I'm gonna have another glass. And then I had that second glass, and I was like, I got room for one more glass. But when I was pouring the third glass, I was like, whoa, I'm getting kind of fucked up. I gotta be careful here. I gotta work tomorrow. And I was like, fuck it. I'm off the hinges already. I might as well just go for it. So
you needed that moment to yourself to decompress.
Yeah.
Were you hungover the next day, by the way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not like headache or anything, but like it took me a minute to catch my feet.
Oh, you get up so early.
I do.
Jesus.
Dude, yeah.
I can barely survive at 4:00 p.m. when I go in, like on a bad hangover day. In the morning, Jesus.
Hey, man, give me a couple cups of coffee, sit at my desk, drink a couple cups of coffee, talk to my first few customers of the day. I'm ready to roll. No big deal. I was feeling it by the end of the day, though.
Yeah?
Which was Friday. And then then I had a fucking busy-ass fucking day Friday. From fucking 6:30 in the morning all the way to 2 o'clock at night. Work, dinner, and a movie. Yeah, it was rough. But, hey, man, you gotta live.
All that shit built up. You wine drunk.
Yeah.
Getting super emotional at this movie.
Yeah, man. Dude, fucking it gets me. It gets me. If we pulled up the film, like the scene on YouTube right now, it'd still get me.
I was near tears.
It fucking wrecks me. Dude, it wrecks me.
And we're talking about Brendan and the dad, right?
Or Tommy and the dad.
Which Tommy? Oh, is this the casino one?
Yes.
That one too. Yes.
What's the one that gets you with Brendan?
When the dad sees his grandchildren through the
gets
door.
me too. Yeah.
He sells that moment so amazingly.
Oh, dude, it's an amazing performance by him. It's fucking perfect. He does sell it. Like his emotional mannerisms are so. Oh man, they're really powerful. Really, really powerful. And like him holding back tears. Like damn near every line, and like these so happen to be like the really emotionally impactful scenes. It's tough, man. I mean, it's a really powerful performance. This is one of those things that sells me on the film.
I feel so bad for his character. This kind of goes back to the thing where I said I wish there was some kind of like more detail into how terrible he used to be, because in a lot of scenes the sons seem like assholes, and I'm like, poor old Nick Nolte.
Yeah, and I think it's like something that I wanted to talk about, where I think this is what trauma does to like families and like very specifically like in this film where your children have felt, how do they say it in the Bible or whatever? It's the sins of the father.
Yeah.
Unto the son, you know. So it's like it's very you know, they feel it. They've felt it, and it destroys them, and like they have to like build their lives around it actually. You know, and like, you know, you have Brendan, his character, he finds his solace in his wife and kids, but he's also like a man that has closed the door to his past with his father. He tells him, phone or mail, you know, phone or post office. That's how you can get a hold of me. You're not supposed to show up here. And then you have Tommy, where he abandoned, you know, his father with his sick, dying mother, and just showed up on his doorstep. You know, and we get to find out later, like, he's on the run. You know, that's why he uses the last name Reardon, which is his mother's maiden name, because he's a deserter from Iraq. And, you know, they've closed themselves off, and like Nick Nolte is the only character that's healed himself, but now he's trying to like heal his family, and he's trying to like reach that out. And I don't know, I find that like really really powerful, because I feel like very rarely does the abuser try to be the one that heals. Like,
I can't think of
you know what
another
I mean?
example.
You know what I mean?
Like shown in like movies or TV. No,
I'm even trying to like say like in real life, like
that
you
too.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot of the times
no one will admit the fault.
Yeah, the abuser rarely admits and tries to fix, and but I think like that's what makes this film really powerful, is because
I didn't even think about it that way.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess in The Wrestler you do have that, but like he's the like that movie sucks because you know,
it doesn't suck.
Well,
but it's not great.
It sucks for the character. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like
The Wrestler sucks.
No, like, you know, Mickey Rourke's character like gets the door shut on him by his love interest and his daughter. Even though the love interest tries to come back, he's like, "Fuck you, bitch! I'm wrestling, motherfucker." So it's just, I don't know. I think the film really takes a unique stance with that. God, I still have so much to talk about.
It does. I literally never thought about how unique the abuser seeking forgiveness is. I just got done watching 4 seasons of Succession, and that's all about family trauma. And I should have seen like the difference, because in that show everybody's afraid of dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic for sure.
I think when Tommy, I think what's really beautiful about his character arc when he blows up finally. I mean, you know, he takes his digs throughout the film, but when he finally blows up on him in the casino, and Nick Nolte's like, I'm really trying here. I'm really trying. And, you know, his character, even though that's what he needs, he still refuses it. And like it ends up like destroying Nolte's character to the point of relapse. And he always keeps telling him like, I liked you better when you were a drunk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck. That's tough, man. I mean, and you got to think it from Nolte's perspective, his character of Patty. You know, he wants his children to love him as he is now. And, you know, so it pushes him back into this. Oh, it's tough, man. It's tough.
Like, how do you like me now? I'm getting drunk now.
And I think what's really beautiful about that scene, specifically the hotel and the hotel room, we've had like these really fun audio overlays of like him listening to Moby Dick on a audiobook, like a recorded tape, and he's listening to Moby Dick while drunk, and he's screaming like, "You gotta stop the ship!" You know, like it's
amazing delivery.
Oh my god, red face on the precipice of a heart attack.
He was giving me serious Willem Dafoe, The Lighthouse vibes in the scene.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
We can't right this ship literally sounds like dialogue from The Lighthouse. But yeah, dude, that scene tore me up.
I mean, that scene makes me cry every time.
Fucking Hardy like holding him at the end.
Yeah. Well, I think what's really powerful about it as well is when you kind of like frame it in the perspective of like, if Tommy being like his favorite, being the one that like, you know, he wrestled for his dad, and he was the one that probably had to deal with him when he was drunk a lot. You know, I imagine they've laid in similar circumstance where he's had to like console his father while he was drunk and like put him to bed. And I love Tommy standing in the door frame, which I think this is actually one of the better parts of Tom Hardy's performance, is when he actually when he opens the door and he sees Patty's character drunk, his father drunk, he actually, his body language, like he shows like cowardice and fear in the door frame. Like he kind of like whimpers away a little bit, like kind of can't look at him. And like when Patty's walking up to him, yelling in his face and stuff, he's like almost like afraid he's going to get hit or something, or you know what I mean? Like it kind of like feels like there's a little bit of like that childhood trauma is like kind of pressing itself into this scene. I feel like you can kind of read into it that way. Just the way they're based, like in the way they're performing through this scene. It's really unique and special. I think it's like obviously my favorite scene in the film.
It's 10 out of 10 stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly. We're don't think we mentioned yet, but these are the same screenwriters that did Tron Legacy. The director is actually one of the screenwriters, I think. This Gavin O'Connor guy.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the cast a little bit.
Yeah?
Because, like, Gavin O'Connor plays, like, the guy that directs the tournament. He's the director. He's like, growing up, we always wanted to know who the strongest kid, the baddest motherfucker in the neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
Now, I want to find out who the baddest motherfucker in the world is.
I didn't know that was him.
That's the fucking director. Fuck. It's so strange. And then you have, interestingly enough, you have Brian Callen. The comedian plays Brian Callen. He goes by his name, Brian Callen, in the film. He's one of the announcers.
Does he not do this in real life?
No.
I've seen him before, but I don't think it was in comedy.
He is, for a long time, up until a couple years ago, when, this is strange, but Joe Rogan, when he moved out to Texas, Brian Callen's still like one of Joe's good friends, but Brian Callen was like a very regular on the Joe Rogan Experience. And Brian Callen is not a UFC announcer. And then like he's a weird dude. And then like for him to be like, I'm gonna play a UFC announcer when my best friend Joe Rogan is a UFC announcer, and I'm gonna go by Brian Callen in this film. It was just like, it's really weird. And by the way, Joe Rogan hates this movie.
Oh yeah.
And for the reason being that you could never do this in real life. A tournament, you would
in the same day,
2 nights in a row or whatever the fuck. Like, isn't it 2 nights in a row? They do like one night.
You're right. You're right. It's
like,
not one day.
He was like, I remember Joe's like, he said one time on a podcast, he was like, you can never do that. It would never happen. Ever. Mm-hmm. Like people have concussions and have to go to the hospital after they get in a fight. Like it's mandatory.
It takes these guys like weeks to months
to recover.
Yeah. Right.
And you are battered and bruised. It's like getting hit with baseball bats. And it's like, yeah, let's do it 2 nights in a row.
4 or 5 times.
Uh-huh. And so it's just like, yeah, you have to suspend your disbelief in that way. Then you have Frank Grillo playing Frank Campana, which is Joel Edgerton, Brennan's trainer.
Yeah.
Frank plays Frank. This is actually his best role. He fucking sucks in everything else. I hate this guy.
I can't remember what else he's in.
He's an action hero star now. He, God, I don't like him.
Like what franchise?
He plays like, he's in a Captain America Winter Soldier. He plays a very small role in that. He plays like one of the Hydra soldiers.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I know exactly what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like, he's kind of like a blank slate again. Like, he's kind of like a Jason Statham type of dude.
He looks like a very early 2000s actor. Like
Yeah.
the spiky hair.
Mm-hmm.
Like
He has like one of the worst haircuts I've seen in this film. It's like a really shabby mohawk mullety.
it was something, that's for sure.
It's beautiful. I don't know, it's just kind of strange. I think Jennifer Morrison, Brennan's wife,
I loved her.
I think she does a great job.
She was great. Yeah.
Rockin' body, by the way. Just saying.
She was a familiar face to me for some reason.
She's in a lot. She's like
How I Met Your Mother, I think is what I may have seen her in.
She's in she was in House. She was in 2009 Star Trek. We've got let's see what else she's in. She's had a very long career.
You know, her character didn't have like a ton to do, but she gave a lot of charisma to what is usually the generic wife character.
Yeah, I really loved how she had like a very strong personality, and I like it felt like she was a really good mother. Like the way she was written was like, oh, she's not just like a generic wife to a husband type character. No, she's like strong, gives like really good emotional dialogue to Brendan. Like I really kind of strange, but like watching them talk about like their kids and their relationship and like, oh, you promised me you wouldn't do this, but like it makes sense. Like her points feel valid. It wasn't like fucking don't hold me back, babe. And like she gave like a really solid performance all around, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And she like supports him in the end.
Yeah.
She's not the naggy wife.
No. Like, and I love like her range is really strong in this film. I feel like, cause like she like plays a very strong-willed, very mature mother, really hot. And
Yes.
Which, by the way, I think her being strong is the hot thing. Like that's hot.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough of my own sexual pleasures on the podcast. But her like charisma and her being ecstatic, jumping around, you know, her house and like that he won and stuff. Like, even though you can see she's worried and like she's not watching the fight, she's like listening for a phone call or a text. Like, I don't know. It's like really, like, I don't know. It was smart the way they wrote her.
Uncharacteristically smart for not just the genre, but like movies in general. Like, normally this would be a character we wouldn't even bring up. Mm-hmm. Like, we just straight up would not talk about.
I know.
She makes a mark.
I love the principal as well. That's another one of those characters that I'm like, I feel like you could forget about, but I actually really like him.
That one was like super unexpected. Like,
I know.
They give him like all of the best comedic lines.
Yeah. Superintendent hasn't been in a school since 9/11. I'm like, yeah, dude, I mean, like, and that's a believable line right there. Like, man, you're probably right. Like, superintendent doesn't show up. He looks at the fucking books all day where, like, let's see who's graduating and let's see what kind of numbers this school's pulling.
I literally laughed out loud in the third act when it cuts to all the high schoolers hanging out at they're all watching the fight together.
Yeah, at the drive-in.
And then it shows like the principal walk by. I'm like, of course.
Yeah. I love when he is watching the fight in his living room and he's like, he got him. And I'm like, fuck yeah, man. Like, I don't know. It's that heartfelt shit, but like they had set it up to be really, really rewarding because these are kind of the characters on Brendan's side of the fence where they're kind of like, they love him and they're rooting for him, but it's also like there are things holding him back and they're kind of using that as a way to like try to protect him. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you can't fight, like you're suspended without pay, but his wife, it's like, you can't fight because I don't want to see you die. So it's like, I don't know, but to see their characters kind of have like that support, they have their own arcs. You know what I mean?
I think that whole thing is a lot stronger than what Tommy has going on the other side. I don't know how you feel about this, like, Marine gone AWOL.
He ripped a door off a tank. Yeah.
This was jarring to me when it cuts to the military
shit. You know, it is a weird cut in the middle of the film.
I thought it was a flashback at first.
Dude, yeah, I did too. You know, like, even watching the film this time around, I'm like, oh wait, no, this is like happening right now. I completely forgot. I thought it was a flashback too.
I was like, oh, we're gonna see what happened to Tommy in Iraq. Like, even though it wasn't that, it was still just so out of left field.
You know, like, there was just like a lot of moving parts in that as well. Like the court marshals were there to like get him because he was a deserter, and they were gonna do it after the fight. And then, like, that's something that like really bothers me because it's like they storm out of the cage. I'm like, wouldn't they like fucking like, get on the ground?
Yeah, they would say, fuck the tournament.
Yeah. You know, so
here's a warrant for your arrest.
Yeah. Subtle things like that where I was like trying to think through it while watching, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, the logistics of it, we can't cancel this tournament. Like, it would ruin it. Like, can we work out a deal to where we can do it after the fact? And I'm thinking about, you know, like sports media and like the politics that get involved in that, like trying to think like and dance around in my own head of like things that aren't shown on screen. Like, okay, how would this work in real life? And I feel like if you give it time to think about it, it would work. But it just like the film sets itself up to suspend your disbelief quite a bit, so it can kind of come off in those moments of like, no, that wouldn't work. But I think it only does that because there's just a lot of moving parts going on, and it's kind of hard to like grab it.
Does the news of him being an AWOL Marine, does that release on the first night or the second night?
I think it releases on the second night after like he starts to build up
like the Marine.
Yeah, like that kind of becomes like his identity in the tournament.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah.
Because, like, if they would have discovered it on the first night,
yes,
it would have been all over.
Yeah.
Because he'd be a flight risk.
Yeah.
Right?
And then, like, I found it interesting with, like, you know, we get those really like late exposition through like our announcers, and like very in like this third act of like the tournament stuff, very rarely is it our characters being the movers of like the story. It's like the people around our characters are moving our story for us, and now we're just watching them fight it out, and then we're getting like it's really weird structurally, like again going back to the screenplay, where I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's an interesting play on the screenplay where you have quite literally late exposition, in the third act.
It was a little unneeded in my.
You think so?
To me, yeah. I get why it's there because like they kind of need reasons for both fighters to have support in the end, but it does feel like very forced in, like just at the last minute.
Yeah, it's kind of weird with the military route. I don't know if you feel the same way, but again, like the late exposition, they're really like throwing a lot in here for Tommy's side, and maybe it is just the way the story's set up, where the first act is really more catered towards Brendan's character, and you kind of have to like.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, it really is more oriented towards Brendan's character, and you get to like understand his motive, and then like you're throwing Tommy's motive really late in the game. But it's also like Tommy's character has been really shut off, and now you're learning about him through the characters around him and the situation surrounding him.
You said that the characters like no longer are the movers of information. You were talking about like how all this stuff gets brought in so late. Do we see the reactions of any of the characters relating to the news breaking that Tommy was an AWOL Marine? Is there like, does it show Brendan like seeing that on a TV or anything? Or?
No, not really. And what's really interesting, the route they take with the film is like Brendan like doesn't announce to anybody that like that's his brother. Like they're like they keep it a secret between them all, so. But I think it really like lends itself back to like the trauma. You know what I mean?
There's shockingly little interaction between our two leads. Although the one scene that we do get with them together is like one of the best parts of the movie.
You like that?
Where they meet on the beach.
On the beach.
Dude, that scene's.
You like that?
That scene's awesome.
Good. I'm glad you do. That's actually like one of my least favorite scenes.
Ooh, okay.
And I just think it's like mostly dialogue. I don't think like their delivery is amazing, but I do think the dialogue itself is good. I just don't think their delivery is quite as good as it should be. Because I think you have like, I mean, honest to God, I think Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy are like have like some really weak dialogue in certain things. Because I think this scene specifically really asks a lot of them as actors, and I don't think they quite hit it the way that I really want. I think there should be a little bit more of an intense.
I agree.
Angle to it. I think there should have been a little bit more anger on both sides of the fence, but it's still strong.
Maybe my love for the scene is a little bit blinded just by the fact that it's an hour and 20 minutes in. Like, these two are finally coming head to head. I think this goes back to the whole not a whole lot of detail in like the relations between characters.
Yeah, and you get that in this scene though. This is the scene where we get to find out a little bit more about their history. Like, okay,
we know that Tommy is upset because he feels abandoned when Brendan went off at some point. Like they were separated for some reason.
So Brendan, from my understanding, Tommy and the mother were leaving, and Brendan was going to leave too. But Brendan was 16 and he was in love with Tess, and he was like, I can't leave.
Yeah, okay.
And then like ended up being like his wife, and like Tommy felt betrayed by that. And so, and then he asked him, like, you're not my brother. From what I can understand, you're not my brother. Were you in the Corps? Because my brothers were in the Corps. It's a good scene.
I can't tell if the reason for the beef between the two brothers is strong or not.
No, it definitely is.
You think it is?
Yeah, 100%. But again, I think this scene specifically should have been the one where they ramp up the emotion.
Yeah.
And I think they were a little cold-shouldered for the information we do get. I think like Joel Edgerton specifically is like, how was I supposed to know my own mother was sick? It's like just really dry.
Yeah, you might be right.
I want him to. I've seen this movie a lot, dude. I've seen this movie a shit ton. Like I've seen this scene a lot. So I think when you have this like very shortly it's almost like, 20 minutes later you have Tom Hardy and Nick Nolte delivering like the most powerful scene in the film, in my opinion. I think I think you could have really sold this a lot better than what was on screen. And I don't know how it didn't happen that way. I don't know if they needed more direction, but I think this scene specifically would have done tenfold for our ending, our climax of their reunion.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I think like the beef between the two of them during when they actually fight doesn't feel as intense as it should be. And I think you're right about this beach scene. Like maybe that is the reason.
Because I think the reasons are valid.
It's valid, but it felt a little cold to me.
Yeah. I think there should have been a lot more intense, heated, emotional argument than what we got. Like I kind of would want, me specifically in this scene, I would want them, I love their dialogue, but I would want them to ramp up to the point of like almost fighting on the beach and then saving it for the ring type of thing. You know what I mean?
That would have been so much better, actually.
You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's a part of me that, again, tying back to your point of like, it would have made the ending feel a really, really great home run. I do think the ending is really great, and I think it really wraps up our story nicely. But I think this scene specifically, when you finally have the two meeting face to face and talking for God knows, probably 10 to 15 years, how long it's been. It's like there should have just been more emotional involvement on both sides of the fence.
This should have been the scene of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're right.
Motherfucker, I know I'm right.
I'm starting to see this now. It's like the weakest out of a lot of the drama scenes that we do get. Like the major character arc moments. Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't mean to ruin that for you, but...
No, because you're totally right.
I've had a lot of time to sit on this.
I mean, these two beat the fuck out of each other, like during their fight.
I love it.
And if they would have fought on the beach, like that would have felt like such a heated like match between the two.
Like I wanted more of the, even if they don't like physically fight, but like to be in each other's face, like heated face, red face, strong emotion. It would have felt. I honestly would have felt it would have really gave momentum to move into the second night. You know what I mean? So
I agree.
So that's just my 2 cents on it, though. I think it just needed to be a little tighter. I think if it was, I think this movie would be fucking perfect. But
yeah, not a bad scene.
No,
a good scene.
Yeah,
but yeah, it left a little bit to be desired. How did you feel about the father arc? Kind of going unresolved in the end. Do you even consider it being unresolved?
Ooh, okay. Ooh, look at you.
This was like something I've been wrestling with.
Okay. Me personally, I think, okay. So I think this story is less about the father reconciling with his sons and more about the sons reconciling with each other. And I think that we don't really get the film kind of leaves itself to assumption in the end. God, this is a great fucking question to ask for the end. God, you're a baller.
Thank you.
Because the sons need to come together before they can come to the father, I think. I really do.
That makes sense. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think there's this... I mean, how would you feel if, like, okay, Brendan or Tommy forgave the father and one didn't? It would be like 2 against 1.
That'd be too weird.
You know what I mean?
Well.
The sons have to come together to come to the father.
Maybe it's just the thing that Nick Nolte had more chemistry with the both of them than they did with each other. So
yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like the dad arc kind of feels like it's demanding to be resolved by the end of it.
I think it is, though, for that reason.
And I think you're right about that.
But like, don't you feel like his performance in the end, like when you get like first and foremost, I think like their final fight with like the About Today in the final round. And like cascades into like this droning on the way out of the arena is like beautiful for like a bunch of fucking white dudes like you and I.
It's great. Yes.
Yeah. You know, the dad is choked up and he's like taking his hat off or like putting his hat back on, and like, God, I love, God, his performance is so good. His performance is so good, man. Like he really, his character is so it's so full and dense and rich. His ability, like literally just putting like a hat back on and like it's like a sign of like this completion, you know. Like he's tossing this hat and like his walks away. It's like it's really fucking beautiful.
It is, yeah.
And I think like that kind of signifies like this completion where I think he would rather his sons come together than come to him. It feels like a little bit more of like I don't know. It feels like he'd rather them heal than himself because he's already arrived there and his sons haven't. And I think that's why they can't come to him on the same level. They're mad because he's healed and they haven't, and they push him out for that reason. And when they heal together, it's like no more worries.
The stuff with the dad it'll come
follow
along down the road somewhere. Okay, that makes sense. I think it's just that Nick Nolte's presence, quality-wise, is so strong on the movie that there's like a little bit of a hole when he takes the back seat. Because once the fighting tournament starts, and then you have the scene with him in the casino and relapsing, like that's like his last dialogue scene, right? Because it goes full force into like Brendan versus Koba and all that shit.
And you're right. And I think oh my God, like I love, like we didn't even talk about it. Like I love like he cheers him on, like he's cheering on Brendan on the sideline and stuff. And I don't know if you caught this, real subtle, and I won't spend too much time on it, but Brendan, after like during like one of the quick fights when he wins, he's like, I'm gonna do this. And he's like, okay, son, like go get him. And like it's like,
I remember that.
You know what I mean? Like it felt very childlike for a kid to say that to his dad, but he's a grown man. But it's also when you reflect back on the fact that like even Brendan mentions like, oh, I think this is during when he shows up at the doorstep when he sees the granddaughters and stuff during that dialogue where he's like, you know, oh, you're just here to gloat because Tommy's back. Brendan takes a very childlike approach to his, oh, I'm going to bring back the fact that like, oh, your golden child's back and you're just, he's like, no, Brendan, I'm not here to do that. But from Brendan, that's the way he views his father. And then like this small dialogue to say that, like, I don't know, I think that's like really powerful because it like puts him back in the perspective of a child to his father, which I think is really unique.
So you think the childlike nature was like literally played up for a split second?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean? Like it's but it's not bad.
I could see that. Like I vaguely remember that moment. It's like literally like a 2-second cut, right?
Exactly. It's real subtle. This movie does have like a lot of like big ideas and like big drama and like big fight, but like there are like really subtle things like that I think like age really well with the film. And I think that like kind of keep me coming back. Like that's a small thing. And I like actually picked up on it for the first time when I watch it this time around, you know? So yeah, it's special. I don't know how to wrap this. Like, it's, I find it interesting as well that I love how beautifully tied it is to the soundtrack and the way it moves through. When they're in their final fight, he makes Tommy tap and he tells him he loves him. I'm like, ugh. Like,
that was a beautiful moment.
Finally, these fucking men can tell each other they love each other. Yeah, it is beautiful.
Dude, having like About Today just going underneath this huge like melodramatic scene, it's super powerful. I found it interesting that, yes, it's weird that national songs are used in this movie. I saw some lines in the songs themselves that might apply to the characters.
Yeah.
The movie opens with the song Start a War. One of the first lines is something about, do you think we can just lock it up behind the painting and leave, or something like that? Like, the line itself is a reference to like cliche old mystery shows where like you move the painting and there's like a lock or like a safe behind it.
Yeah.
But like I think when it applies to the characters, it's about like them locking away like trauma, or like nobody wants to talk about the big thing, like the elephant in the room. I don't know. I thought that shit was...
It's smart because like during that scene, Nolte's like coming out of church and being like, hey, Tammy, whatever the Pam, whatever the fuck, he's talking real subtle, like real quiet because it's real muffled dialogue, but like oh, that was really powerful stuff. Thank you for sharing. And like he's a person that like probably doesn't like talk too much probably about his stuff. He probably wants to just move on, and you know, like he's going to church, and you know, it's just it was kind of smart use. I kind of wish there was more national in the film. I feel like
I thought there was going to be.
I thought there was, you know, like it's like literally it feels like just the beginning and the end, kind of like their presence is in the soundtrack, but you know, it's not a whole lot. So it's not a bad thing either. I think I don't really know that like I would want to put the National like anywhere else in the film. Like it kind of felt like each scene kind of stood on its own legs without it.
You don't want to like overuse the copywritten music. I thought like the score that was behind everything else was pretty strong, honestly.
Yeah.
Like during the big emotional moments, it really like sold the scenes.
We didn't really talk about it too much either, but like the cinematography, it's really like kind of gritty, and I mean it is on film, which I really like. I love seeing film grain all the time. I love when films are shot on film and rather than digital. It doesn't happen very often. So, but I mean, the cinematography isn't like outstanding, but it's it works for the film. And we have like a lot of like really, really cold color palettes. It's very dry, dramatic. It reminds me of Moneyball in that way, which is like some of my favorite. Give me drama with a nice, cool color palette on film. Like, please, you want me.
I thought like the cinematography of Moneyball was like a lot more deliberate than this one,
for
though.
sure.
But like the color palette is definitely the same year, I think. Right?
Oh my god, that's hilarious. Yeah, 2011.
But like it was very similar to The Wrestler as well. Like handheld,
dirty
like, zooms, that kind of shit. It was pretty basic. Like hardly even any like establishing shots. Like you kind of just cut straight to rooms with people talking. Not that that's a bad thing.
I don't really have a whole lot else to say. I think it's been a good therapy session, I think.
I thought it was interesting that former WWE wrestler Kurt Angle plays Koba.
We didn't talk about that. Oh my god, he's on the fucking juice. God, he's juiced up.
Dude, this was during an era.
He's got HGH gut in this film.
Does he?
Yes, it's fucking bubbled.
I think around this time he was like constantly high on painkillers.
Yeah,
like he was fired from WWE for that a few years before this.
That's awesome.
Because I think the very first shot of Koba in the movie is like on a TV screen, and he has this like 1,000-yard stare in it, like
wide-eyed.
Like he's high as fuck.
It's awesome.
Like they used to call him Perk Angle around this time, and I'm not kidding.
That's awesome. That's great.
But yeah, so former All-American, like real life Olympian hero, won a gold medal with a broken neck.
Yeah.
And he plays the Russian in this movie.
The perked up Russian.
The perked up Russian.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't want to fight a perked up Russian.
Absolutely not, dude. I wouldn't want to fight a Russian in general. But yeah, that's awesome.
I don't think I got any more outside of that, really.
I know what I have, like, as far as ratings. I'd be, like, really curious to know what you think.
I'd probably go, like, just like a flat 8. Liked it. I think it transcends the tropes. And there you go. Strong emotional core. Like, it's sold on emotion and acting.
Yeah.
And, like, some great dialogue writing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think 8 is fair.
I'm glad you put it that way. The emotions transcend the trope. That's, by the way, I think I've done like my holy trinity of fucking underrated, beloved films. And that has like been a very common theme. And it's the same way with like Last Samurai and Tron Legacy, where it's like, I really do believe that the emotion transcends the small flaws. And I think that they end up making what otherwise could be categorized as like just like not great or mediocre films into like something like really special. And like, that's why I love it. I also like am like gonna meet you there with like a flat 8. I would even go up to, like at 8.5 on like a good day. But I think I don't know. It's a weird film. It's really
it is weird.
On paper, it's like, yes, the double once in a lifetime with deep, dark, abusive, alcoholic father imposing trauma on the two double comeback story. Like
it's ambitious.
It is. And I think that for as ambitious as it is, it really tackles what otherwise could be a fucking mess really well.
This was kind of like the mirror to Tron Legacy, like considering it's like the same screenwriters. If you combined the positive qualities of both of these movies, then you have like a classic.
A masterpiece, yeah.
Tron kind of lacked the emotion in a lot of aspects, but like concept and imagery and cinematography was great. And then this one had the dialogue, the emotion. So these screenwriters need to give it another go.
Yeah, one more time. Yeah, man, that was all actually like everything I could have hoped for out of talking. I'm so glad we did. I've been waiting for this one for a long time, and that was a great conversation. Yeah, I leave you the floor, man. I'm excited to see where you're taking us.
Oh shit, that's right.
Chocolate starfish. Let's go.
Limp Biscuit. Damn it. As you may be aware, in almost exactly a month, I turned 30 years old.
Oh my God, you do!
I turned fucking 30 years old.
You old fucker.
I'm going to start asking for my senior discount everywhere I go.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so happy. That's awesome.
Life's over.
That's amazing. I've been waiting this day for a long fucking time, dude.
I'm just kidding. It's not all doom and gloom.
That's
for
amazing.
Me turning 30. The reason I bring that up is because something else that is beloved by me turns 30, or actually just turned 30 like yesterday, I think.
Okay.
The film that we're going to do next, it is a well-known, critically well-received blockbuster that spawned a franchise. It has 5 sequels, but the very first one of the series, it's a Steven Spielberg movie called Jurassic Park.
Yes.
I've kind of been sitting in like a lot of dark stuff. That's like kind of typically what I recommend on the show.
You're a white millennial, yeah.
I take us in twisted directions sometimes.
Yeah.
And I want to step away from that for a while and just do what is literally, I think, the first movie that I ever loved.
Oh my God, that's amazing that you... I never really loved it. Like, I know it was like beloved and like it's good, but like that's funny that you love it. I mean, like I think everybody has a Spielberg film that they love.
Yeah.
Mine was Jaws as a kid, and now I'm like afraid to watch it.
Jaws is amazing.
Funny how that works. I could watch it nonstop as a kid, but now I'm like never.
But yeah, Jurassic Park is like that big nostalgia movie for me, like as a child.
That's awesome. We'll have some fun. I don't think I've like seen Jurassic Park front to back outside of like it being broken up by commercial break in a long fucking time.
Really?
Like on cable. So,
dude, me and Liv watch Jurassic Park every year or two.
That's
probably.
awesome. Okay, yeah, I'm excited.
One of my all-time favorite movies.
Oh,
so.
dude, I'm hyped. Oh, yeah, fuck yeah, dude.
Who doesn't like dinosaurs? God damn it.
We need something fun.
Yeah.
For sure.
We haven't hit a big franchise since like Men in Black, I don't think. So.
No, we really haven't. All right, man. Well, that's exciting. I'm kind of hyped. That's an easy one, but it'll be a lot of fun. Fuck yeah.
Also, I want to drink margaritas for that episode.
Not a problem. We can make that happen.
I think that would be like a fun idea.
Margarita on ice, right?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, man. Well, until next time, I'm done. That was a lot of fun. If you could do me the great honor of signing us off.
Adios.